to the Alphabet of Healing. I'm Julia, a German member of the Suburban Bay Area in Long Beach here in San Francisco, California. We have reached the letter J in the alphabet, as you just saw. Actually, the letter that supposedly was added last to the Roman alphabet. However, I wanted to reflect with you today the importance of the form of the letter J in statistics. On a two-variable equation graph, the letter J becomes an important statistical curve in many disciplines: economics, medicine, political science, geology, engineering, etc. My focus today is the J-curve theory in political science regarding social structures, how different groups of people try to reach stability, which is defined as reaching a safe environment with health care for its members and average economic well-being for all people, with equal education possibilities, cultural and intellectual growth, and well-trained professional career paths. The group of people can choose two different structures to reach such stability. One group tries to reach stability by being rigid, an autocratic dictatorship with racial profiling, limiting access to diversity of opinion, prohibiting the exchange between cultures and traditions, while tightly aggrandize a specific heritage over and against all other, and spending most of the resources in military and police, since law enforcement is most importantly at the service of the controlled environment. Another group tries to reach stability via democratic checks and balances, building on education, honest exchange between groups of people that are of diverse opinion, creating concentric circles of inclusion, integration, and growing cultural capital, as well as investing especially in professional and academic excellence. According to political research, both groups begin at the bottom of the J-curve. The rigid autocratic system has a short growth of stability, taking away democratic check and balances. And it stagnates, incapable of further growth, and forms the short end of the letter J on the equation graph. The group that tries to concentrically integrate and grow diverse cultural and racial capital, keeping an honest and open-ended dialogue between people of different opinions, forms the long end of the J-curve on the equation graph, since on the long run it provides, surprisingly perhaps, better stability than rigidness. A very good example of this comparing is perhaps the development in East and West Germany after World War II. Up to the end of the 1960s, East and West Germany had a similar advancement of stability and well-being. But then East Germany hit a point where growth became increasingly impossible under the rigid central presidential authority. Thank you for bearing with me this little political excursion. So why talking about this J-curve under J in an alphabet of social and personal healing? Because when one gets sick, the first thing that comes to mind is sticking to something known. Sometimes it might be religious safety. God punishes me. Or sometimes it might be psychological safety. I probably needed this to grow. Or, in the case of social insecurities, the call for someone who says he will make it all good, all great again. How important is it to realize there are two ends to the Roman letter J, one short one and one long one. The short one that is conditioned to succeed through control, and the long J end that has opted to keep dialogue, challenge, and integration of difference open. How can I heal as a person without rethinking my thoughts around dying and death? Rethinking what it means to be even a healthy person. Re-experiencing who God is for me. How can I heal stuck to paradigms that served me as a virtuous, serving Christian, energetic, if now I'm feeling not more than dead baggage to the community? If prayer is, as Johann Baptist Metz says, to question our questions, is that not especially the case for prayer in a sick, personal, and ecclesial body? Many of our institutions, our societies, and personal surroundings have taught us otherwise so. Climb down, sit tight, more control, more supervising, more rigidity is getting us through this. What if actually to climb the long side of the J means a no to autocratic leadership that can change any minute of opinion, but of course gives me personal safety because I know someone else is in charge. I can leave my responsibility. What if climbing the long side of the J means to confront thoughts and thinking about dying and death that asks me to change my God image, my self image, my perception of the natural and human made world? Could it be possible that with the inspiration of the political science state theory J curve I introduced, we are invited to rethink society as we know it, our personal life, and the church we belong to? As a Roman Catholic, I was moved to know that the Archbishop John Quinn of San Francisco, deceased in 2017, was one of the first officials to call the HIV/AIDS crisis to the forefront of religious leaders, compassionately and supportingly in 1982. He actually made John Paul II meet with HIV patients and supported parishes to be inclusive and healing. Archbishop Quinn had horizons beyond this time, as Paul VI for the Vatican II Council. Especially perhaps in this very intense COVID-19 times, it is important to remember those horizons. Wearing a mask, smiling, greeting and laughing at each other as we're keeping our distance and washing our hands. Aren't they actually symbols of standing up for our society as diverse as it is, with weak and strong people, with old and young people, with people of all races and situations? Doesn't the J-curve analysis in political science warn us as believers not to clamp down in rigidity, but to choose the horizons that are most fruitful for a well-looked-after society? Doesn't it invite us sick people to open our heart to the weaving greatness and compassion of our God instead of the rigid divine shamer that knocks at our door? Only continuous integration of social factors, life differentiation, and diversity form a mature human being, according to humanistic psychologist Carl Rogers. And I believe we can say that about our society. The J-curve in state theory is quite a warning example for societies who try to exclude and divide under autocratic rule. What I would like to end with today is with how Jesus, according to the Synoptic Gospels, at least saw political state theory. And I'm going to rely on the research of a wonderful deceased friend and mentor of mine, Louise Schotroff, in my further reflection. Jesus explains his vision of social order with the image of a mustard seed shrub. It appears in Matthew 13:31-32, Mark 4:30-32, and Luke 13:18 and 19, and it also appears in the non-canonical Gospels of Thomas. The three verses in Mark are: Jesus also said, "With what can we compare the kingdom of God, or what parable will we use for it? It is like a mustard seed, which, when sown upon the ground, is the smallest of all the seeds on earth. Yet when it is sown, it grows up and becomes the greatest of all shrubs, and puts forth large branches so that the birds of the air can make nests in its shade." Well, it doesn't seem very customary to compare a national state, a kingdom, or an empire with a mustard seed shrub. Those shrubs can get big, though, far taller than a human stands, and wide like a willow in its branches. A mustard seed shrub. But generally I have not heard that they might be compared with a social organization. They look pretty unruly, those twigs and branches of a mustard seed brush. They really are not about their looks, but about their functionality. They do provide countless opportunities to perch and rest for birds and all kinds of other small animals. However, I think it is important to point out, with the research of Louise Schotroff, that in antique times of the New Testament, a powerful state, if represented with a symbol, and if represented as a tree, was represented as a triangular cedar, with a clear, rigid structure, a powerful autocrat on the top, and then the different levels of civilians, with wealth, with voice, and then the ones without voice, and then the slaves, following the hierarchy of the cedar tree. Jesus, in contrast, suggests a mustard seed shrub. How does Jesus' mustard seed shrub could become perhaps the most sustainable social organization into the future? Post-COVID-19, post-World War IIs, post-Cold Wars, but however facing terrorism, fanatism, and further health crises connect with an incredible lack of protection for the most vulnerable in this world, like, to only mention one place today, in Yemen 2020. Isn't that the most important reason why we need Jesus' invitation to climb the long side of the J-curve in embracing the rather multi-directional growth of a mustard seed shrub instead of a straight, controlled, triangular pine? Letting healthy and vulnerable, lively and exhausted birds rest in our shade, just as Jesus explains to us. Yet, when the mustard seed grows and becomes the greatest of all shrubs, it puts forth large branches so that all birds of the air can make nests in its shade.